Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm coming at you with my April TBR and I'm super excited. These are all of the books that I'm planning on reading this month. A couple of them I actually just ordered because I didn't own them physically and I want to, but I'll talk about all of that. So I currently have about 13 books on my TBR. It's a pretty big TBR, so it's very ambitious. So yeah, I have my little spring ambiance and my flowers, my books. I'm ready to talk about all the books that I want to read in April. First off, I have a graphic novel and that is Love Sickness by Junji Ito. I actually randomly ordered this from the library. This is a loan because I was watching Chloe from oh my god, Books with Chloe, I think it's her channel name, I'm so sorry. But I saw her reading this book and she loved it. She likes Junji Ito a lot, and then also my friend Jan over at Jan Agaton really likes Junji Ito as well. So I'm excited to finally pick up a book by him. Never read any graphic novel like this before. I think this is a manga. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this. I don't really know what it's about, but I know that Junji Ito writes a lot of graphic novels slash manga that are all centered around horror, but I'm not sure if this is like a whole bunch of short stories or what it is really about, but I'm excited to get to it. Next up, I have a book that I don't think I would have thought that I'd ever be saying that I was excited to reread this book, and that is Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. So Christina over at Christina's Chapters and Hannah from Hannah's Recent Reads are doing a read-along for every single book that Sarah J Maas has ever written, and currently they just read The Assassin's Blade, which I just read, and I had already read The Assassin's Blade and also Throne of Glass, and I didn't really enjoy them. I thought they were pretty mediocre when I read them like about 2 years ago, but I was also not in the best mental space. So I reread The Assassin's Blade and I loved it. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. So I've been thinking a lot recently about Throne of Glass and I really want to pick it up. Like right now I'm reading a book and I have 100 pages left, and like I just want to finish that book so I can start Throne of Glass already. And I never thought that I'd be like itching to read Throne of Glass. I thought it would be something that I would dread to reread, but I'm actually really excited. So yeah, if you want to learn more about the Throne of Glass, Crescent City, Court of Thorns and Roses, Sarah J Maas read-along that Christina and Hannah are hosting, I will link them down below. Also, if you don't know Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas, I mean, I'm sure that you do, but basically this book follows this young girl. She's about 16 or 17 years old and she's like the best assassin in her land. This is a fantasy novel. It is YA, but it reads a lot like high fantasy. And rereading The Assassin's Blade, it just gave me like major YA Game of Thrones, so that's why I'm really excited to read it. And I'm also kind of in a fantasy kick, which I never thought that I would say either, but yes. Next up, I have 3 books that I'm planning on reading for a little reading vlog kind of themed. I think you might catch like the theme that I'm going for. But first up, I have The Grimrose Girls by Laura Pohl. I think I talked about this book a little bit during my book haul, my most recent one. And this one is pretty much about these young girls that go to a school, and I think like a murder happened. There are these 4 friends and they're trying to research what happened like for the murder, and they figure out that the killer at their boarding school is doing these murders. They learn that the past murders at the school are connected to ancient fairy tales. So I'm really excited to read this. It seems like it's super dark. I haven't heard great things about it, but I am going into a mindset like I really want to love this. So I'm gonna go in with an open mind and hope that I love this book. Next up, I have a sequel, and that is A World Without Princes by Saman Chainani, and this is the second book in the School for Good and Evil series. I read the first book in this series for my little middle grade March reading vlog that I did last month. And I just really loved it. I really liked all of the nods to like the classic fairy tales like Cinderella and Snow White and all of that. And if you don't know what the School for Good and Evil is about, it's basically about these 2 best friends, and they live in this little town, and there's kind of like a myth that this man comes every few years and kidnaps 2 kids and then puts them in a school, one for good, one for evil, and the school for good kind of teaches you how to be like a princess, and then the school for evil teaches you how to be like the bad guy in the story in like the fairy tale story. So I'm really excited to continue this series. Next up, I have Cinder and Glass by Melissa de la Cruz, and this was sent to me by Penguin Teen, so thank you so much, Penguin Teen, for sending this my way. And this one is a Cinderella retelling. I've been itching to read a fairy tale retelling again, so I'm really excited to pick this up. And this one is set in France, and it seems like it's going to have like a love triangle. I'm not too sure about that, so don't quote me on it, but it seems like in this novel our main character kind of catches the eye of the prince, but she's more interested in the prince's brother. She kind of keeps like flirting with the prince so she can stay in court and not have to go back home with her to her stepmother and stepsisters. So I'm really excited to read this one too. Next up, I have a book that I don't own, and that is A Magic Steeped in Poison. I don't remember the author's name, I'm so sorry, but this one is a fantasy, historical fiction, Asian literature type of book, and this one is the pick for the Full Moon Book Club, which is Jan from Jan Agaton's book club. And I feel really bad because I've just been so busy that I haven't been able to join in everybody's book club, and I used to read like every single book that Jan picked for her book club, and then for a couple months there I was trying to join other book clubs and her book just wasn't ever read. So I'm really trying to prioritize this book this month. Like I said, this is fantasy, and from what I read from the description, it seems like our main character is she's a young girl and she's really good at like tea making, I believe, and she was the one who concocted this tea that was poisonous and killed her mother. And then now something is happening that her sister is threatened, so she goes to this type of competition, and whoever wins this competition gets like a wish granted from like the queen or king or whoever. So I think she's going to this competition in order to save her sister, and it sounds amazing, so I'm really excited to read this one. Next up, I have another book club pick that I don't own, and that is Blaze Wrap Games by Amparo Ortiz, and this one is written by an amazing Puerto Rican author. And this one, like I said, is a book club pick, and this one is for Brujas and Books, which is the book club that I run with Cami over at Borrows and Books. And basically each month we just pick a book by a Latinx author and we just read it and discuss. So this one is, like I said, written by a Puerto Rican author, and this one is about dragon riders in kind of like an Olympic type of festival that happens every year, and our main character is a very young girl who is a dragon rider, and I think she's either the first female in the competition or something like that. So I'm super excited to read this because I haven't read many books with dragons being like the main theme, so I'm super excited to read this one. Next up, I have Cantoras by Carolina de Robertis. I actually have no idea what this book's about, so I'm gonna have to read the description, but basically I want to read this book for the Latin American Reading Project that Alicia over at Alicia Guzman is hosting, and she actually bought me this book for this reason. And that project is basically every month Alicia kind of pointed a country to each month, and basically each month you have to read a book by an author from that country, and they're all Latin American countries, obviously. I think this month is Argentina, I'm not too sure. I've been completely failing at this reading project. I haven't read a single book. I always pick one out and then never read it, so I feel terrible, but definitely want to prioritize this month. So I'm lying, this one is not Argentina, this one is Uruguay. From the back it reads, the brutal military government that took power in Uruguay in the 1970s, and under which homosexuality is a dangerous transgression, 5 women miraculously find one another. So I'm really excited to read this. Next up, I have Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. Like I mentioned, that read along is still going on, so the next book that we're supposed to be reading is Crown of Midnight, and that is the 3rd book, or like basically the 2nd book in the Throne of Glass series, so yes. Next up, I have Wondersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow, and this is the 2nd book in the Nevermore series. If you don't know this series, this is a middle grade series that I also read. I believe it was for my middle grade March reading vlog, or maybe it might have been my Kaylin video, but I can't remember. But I read it recently, the first one, and this is the sequel, and I'm super stoked because on the first novel, I feel like the author left like a whole bunch of hints and like a breadcrumb trail, I feel like, and I feel like all of those things are gonna come together as the series progresses. So I'm super stoked. This one, like I said, it follows our main character Morrigan Crow, and basically she was like born in the unluckiest day of her town, and she's always told that she's going to die at a really young age, like 11 or 12, and the day that she's supposed to die, this man called Jupiter kind of whisks her away to the land of Nevermore, and there she has to go through all of these trials in order to stay in Nevermore. And it's a really cute series. And these last 3 books I'm planning on reading for SpringFlingOWeen. And if you don't know about SpringFlingOWeen, this is a kind of mystery slash horror centered readathon that Gabby over from Gabby Reads and Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte host, and they host them very differently, sometimes like a week, sometimes a weekend, it depends, but this time around I think it's about 4 to 5 days, so I'm really excited. It's happening at the end of the month, so if you want to join, I'm sure that you have a lot of time to join. There are only 3 prompts for SpringFlingOWeen. There are only 2 reading prompts and then 1 activity. So for the first prompt, it's to read a book with yellow or pink in the cover, and that was really interesting because for mystery and thrillers you think a lot of covers are very dark, but I found one, and that is Finley Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano, and I've been meaning to read this for a while now, so I'm really excited that this is happening and that I get to pick this up. I'm sure that you've heard about this book because a lot of people love this one, and it follows Finley Donovan, and she is a writer, and basically she's pitching like this story about, oh my god, what are those called? A contract killer to her PR like publicist agent person, and someone overhears their conversation and they assume that Finley Donovan is a contract killer herself. So it sounds like it's gonna be a lot of fun. I've heard this is super funny, so I'm really excited to read this one. Next prompt is to read a Backlist book, like mystery thriller book, and I am going to be reading 14 Ways to Die by Vincent Rolfe, and I heard Kirsten over at Kirsten's Corner talk about this book a lot, so that's why I bought it, and also Cami from Borrows and Books really loved this book. But yeah, this one is a mystery, and from what I remember Kirsten talking about, it seems like this follows a serial killer, and he's killed 13 victims so far, and then the 14th victim, I don't really know how she knows that she's targeted, but somehow, some way she knows that she is targeted. So she auditions for this YouTube TV show where they kind of follow her around at all times. So she auditions for it just so she can kind of capture whenever this person is trying to kill her, so they can catch the killer. It sounds super interesting, and I don't think I've ever read a book that ties YouTube into the story, so I'm really excited to read this one. Last but not least, this one doesn't have a prompt attached to it. I just want to try to read it during SpringFlingOWeen, and that is The Maid by Nita Prose. This one is another mystery that follows, obviously, a maid. She's a maid at a hotel, and she loves her job, and one day she finds a murdered man in one of the hotel rooms, and everyone starts to blame her, and they say that she was the one who committed this murder. I believe it's because she's more of like a weirder character, I think, so I'm not too sure why they're blaming her. But basically then her mission becomes that she has to find out who did this so she can clear her name. I'm super excited to read this one. Alright, those were all of the books. I think I had about 13 to 14 books. I definitely will not be getting to all of them, and I usually sprinkle some graphic novels throughout because I like reading graphic novels as I'm going to sleep, so I don't know which ones I'll read, but we shall see. But yeah, those were all the books that I want to read in April. I hope that you all enjoy. I have a couple of reading vlog ideas from these books, so look forward to those reading vlogs. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.